Today, I'm going to be showing you 5 real violations that put trucks out of service immediately during DOT inspections. These are actual real examples and pictures of out of service violation that I've found within the last couple weeks and couple days. Now, some of these are extremely dangerous violations. Some of them develop solely over time, and others are just simply things that drivers missed on their pre-trip inspections that then turn into a pretty big thing. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you the violation, I'm going to explain why it puts trucks out of service, and just talk about what inspectors really look for during DOT inspections so that you don't get jammed up with things like this. Let's start with the first one, because this one right here is something that inspectors notice within the first few seconds of seeing a truck. Now, take a look at this tire right here. So at first glance, you might think, well, the tire is just a little bit worn, or maybe you see it jumping out at you right away as well. But if you look closely, you can see metal, you can see cord showing on this tire, and a lot of the tread is actually completely removed from this tire. So this tire is pretty much way worn down beyond what is acceptable. The tread is extremely worn, and section of the tire deteriorating, and the structural integrity of the tire itself is completely compromised. Commercial motor vehicle tires are designed to carry heavy loads, operate at highway speeds, and handle a lot of stress and heat over time. But once a tire reaches a condition like this, the risk of failure increases dramatically. And this is something that you can catch on a pre-trip easily, but if this were to happen while you're driving and you're not getting out to check your truck periodically, then a lot of drivers won't even know that their tire is looking like this. Tire failures on commercial motor vehicle is not something to take lightly. So think about this. When a tire fails on a passenger vehicle, yes, it's pretty dangerous. When a tire fails on an 80,000 pound plus vehicle, it can be catastrophic for the driver and any other people around them. And that's just why tire conditions is one of the first things that a lot of inspectors look at during a DOT inspection. When an inspector approaches a truck, they're often scanning tires almost immediately. They're looking for things like exposed cords, severe tread wear, cuts and damage, sidewall issues, or uneven wear patterns. When a tire reaches this level of deterioration like the tire that I showed you, it becomes an out of service condition, which means that the vehicle cannot legally continue operating until that out of service violation is repaired. Now, here's something important drivers should think about. Most tire issues like this don't happen overnight. Sometimes it can, but most of them don't. This type of wear usually happens gradually, which means there were most likely a little bit of warning signs way before it got to this point. And that's where proper pre-trip inspections do come in handy instead of just kicking tires and keeping it moving. All right, let's move on to the next one, because braking systems are another area that inspectors pay very close attention to. So take a look at this brake assembly right here. Brakes are one of the most critical safety systems on any commercial motor vehicle. Without a properly functioning brake system, a truck simply just cannot operate safely. In this example, you can see that the brake components are worn beyond acceptable limits. Brake linings have minimum thickness requirements under FMCSA regulations. Once that lining material wears below that minimum thickness, then braking performance is hindered. When braking performance decreases, stopping distance increases. And when you're dealing with commercial motor vehicles out there that weigh extremely heavy amounts of weight, even a small decrease in braking power and effectiveness can have massive consequences. And that's pretty much why brake inspections are such a massive part of DOT inspections as a whole. So inspectors out there are looking very closely at brake lining thickness, brake drum condition, missing components, contamination, and just the whole air system. When brake components no longer meet safety standards, the vehicle can be placed out of service until repairs are made. So this is just another example of something else that can be caught potentially during a pre-trip inspection, and many drivers out there tend to miss things like this. Drivers who take the time to check brake components regularly can often catch problems before they even reach this point. But when inspections are rushed or skipped, issues like this can develop over time. And I know sometimes chafing can be hard to find, but this was an audible air leak, a very loud audible air leak. Now let's jump into the next example, because sometimes the big issue isn't a major component like a tire or the braking system. Sometimes it's something smaller that can still create a pretty big safety risk. Take a look at this airline. So airlines are responsible for carrying compressed air throughout the braking system. Without proper air pressure, air brakes cannot function correctly. In this example, you can see that the airline is rubbing against another component. And over time, this type of contact can wear down the airline, causing chafing and holes in the airline, which then causes an audible air leak. So when an airline develops a leak, the vehicle can obviously start losing air pressure. Air pressure is critical to braking systems like we know. If pressure drops too low, then braking performance can be affected. That's why inspectors check airlines carefully during DOT inspections. They're looking for things like cracks, leaks, rubbing or chafing, loose fittings, and just straight up damaged lines. So something that may seem minor at first can actually become a serious safety issue. And again, this is another example of something that can often be caught during a good pre-trip inspection. Now let's move on to our fourth example, because this one involves contamination around braking components. Take a look at this area around the brake components. You can see signs signs of fluid or grease contamination. Contamination around the braking components can reduce braking effectiveness. And like many of us know, brake lining rely on friction to slow the vehicle. So when oil or grease gets all over braking components, you can guess the vehicle is not going to stop just as how it should. When the friction decreases, braking performance also decreases. And again, when you're dealing with heavy commercial motor vehicles, braking performance is critical. That's why a lot of inspectors look for that contamination around brake assemblies during DOT inspections. I had a driver come into a detail one time and I can literally smell the hub oil. So I had him stop and I checked for the hub oil and it was, coated all over his steer axles on both sides. His brake pads were soaked, dripping, and it was an active leak. And again, this is just another example of something a driver should keep an eye on during their self-inspections. Just like my shirt says, did you pre-trip or not? It's a perfect shirt for today. Leaks and contamination can develop slowly over time, or sometimes it's instant, but a lot of times it's slowly over time. Now let's take a look at the final example. Take a look at this section of this trailer frame. You notice anything funny? Of course you do. You can see the visible structural crack near the securement area. Structural components of trailers are designed to withstand significant stress during operation, but over time, heavy loads, vibration, and road conditions can create fatigue in metal components. And that right there could have legit just been a weak weld, and when they go to torque down securement chains, it ends up snapping from the stress over time. It literally could be anything, but the moral of the story is that that anchor point cannot be snapped, because then whatever is hooked onto it, that's going to be rendered not reliable. It's like you don't have a strap at all on there. When structural cracks or cracks on that anchor point develops, the integrity of that whole thing is pretty much done for. And that's why inspectors check frame components and anchor points carefully during DOT inspections. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, structural damage is taken pretty seriously because if you have a chain hooked to a broken anchor point, that means that object is not properly secured because the anchor point is holding nothing. Every one of these violations that we looked at today can place a truck out of service during a DOT inspection. And the really important thing I want you to take away from this is that many of these issues that we talked about can be found by a driver during a pre-trip inspection. And I know that some things happen suddenly, but a lot of this stuff, they show signs before they just completely go full on. Good pre-trip inspections, regular maintenance, and proper attention to vehicle condition can prevent a lot of these things. Because at the end of the day, inspections are about safety. And those pictures that I just showed you shows you why we're out here doing our job. I'm curious to hear from you drivers though. What's the worst violation you've seen on another truck or the worst violation you unexpectedly got hit for? Drop a comment down below and let us know. And if you want to see more trucking inspection breakdowns, trucking news, trucking analytics, anything compliance like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything else. Until next video, stay safe, keep rolling.